my name is Emma Walker and I am the author of this presentation. This portion of my presentation relates to SCRIP, which is Liberty's acronym for the 5 dispositions that they believe should be observed in all of their education students and, in my opinion, all educators. These 5 dispositions are derived from the conceptual framework that Liberty has established. They stand for social responsibility, commitment, reflective practice, integrity, and professionalism. So I'm going to be explaining how each of those dispositions relates to my presentation on distance learning. S for social responsibility. It is my responsibility to ensure that I'm advancing digital equity, helping provide equal opportunities for all of my students, and maintaining differentiated practices, even though the lessons may be virtual online lessons. C, I am committed to keeping students informed and engaged without putting a burden on their parents. This is particularly an issue for younger students. I'm a kindergarten teacher, so my kids, almost all of them, are unable to read, so that means that parents really have to facilitate all of their involvement in most of these activities. So I'm committed to providing activities whenever possible that do not require excessive parental involvement. R is reflective practice. In this case, that would mean being proactive, staying up to date and involved in distance learning resources and opportunities. So make sure that you're staying involved and finding new websites, new resources for these families while you're on break or during your distance learning semester, depending on your situation. I is integrity. So this means staying involved even though no one is observing you or really holding you accountable. As teachers during the normal school year, in person, we have our school administrators, maybe our mentor teacher, co-workers coming in to observe us and kind of grade us on our professional practices. So they would say, yeah, you're proficient in professionalism, but you know, you're posting the standards is acceptable. So we don't have that in distance learning. That's not really an opportunity because we're social distancing. So it would mean holding yourself accountable in this case and making sure that you're still doing your best and putting your best effort putting forth your best effort to be the best teacher you can be, even though no one is coming in and observing you and holding you accountable. Make sure you maintain contact with families. That's part of integrity in this situation. Keep building those relationships and maintain those relationships that you were building or would be building in person. P, professionalism. I believe that professionalism is a huge component that needs to be addressed in distance learning. I think that many teachers don't have proper guidelines on how to maintain professionalism in distance learning. And if your school doesn't provide them, that makes sense. This is an unforeseen situation. One way to maintain professionalism in distance learning is by not giving students or parents your personal cell phone number unless your school asks that you do so. I personally use the Google Voice program, which allows you to use a Google phone number. You can still text, you can still call, it has all the same capabilities and functions, but you're not giving out your personal cell phone number, which I feel is safer and much more professional. It also means not allowing students or parents to have access to your social media. If your school has a social media, I'm sure they would encourage you to promote that, but your social media is not any of the business of your students or their parents. It's unprofessional. Something else that I would like to touch on is that I think you should always maintain reflective practices even after you've graduated school as an educator. So an example of that would be thinking, are you volunteering? Are you staying involved in activities at your school, even the ones that aren't mandatory? Are you maintaining those caring professional relationships with students and their families? Are you managing your time wisely in the classroom? And one example of that I actually seem to see a lot as a teacher is like if your students have silent reading time. Are you on your phone in the back of the classroom? Or are you kind of milling around the room, building those relationships? What are you reading? What is that book about? Things like that. You want to stay involved with those students. You're there for them during the day. and integrity and reflective practices dictate that you be there for them, not be on your phone, not be reading your own book. But that's just an example of using your time wisely. And lastly, something that is not a part of SCRIP, but that I would like to talk about is the fruit of the Spirit. So Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. This means that the result of God's work in our lives is the fruit of the Spirit. You don't form your relationship with God by the fruit of the Spirit. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm tripping over my words. You don't form your relationship with God because of the fruit of the Spirit. You exhibit the fruit of the Spirit because of your relationship with God. So, in most public school situations, teachers are not allowed to, actually in any public school situations in America, teachers are not allowed to openly exhibit their faith, to explicitly talk about it. And I feel that the fruit of the Spirit is an excellent way to set an example for your students and to show them God's light and love without breaking those rules, so to speak. So even without you talking about your faith, if you live by your faith and you show your faith in the Lord without explicitly talking about it, your students will still see those fruits. They'll see love, joy, peace, gentleness, and that sets an amazing example for them of what God's love looks like. Thank you.